Hey guys! So, I'm here today to talk about the Newsies. So, for those that don't know, I celebrated my birthday Friday, August 5th. I turned 29. I'm 29 now. That's crazy. I'm 1 year away from 30. But let's not talk about it. Yeah, so for my birthday, I did a couple things, but my friend got me a ticket to go see Newsies on Broadway in Chicago. We went Saturday and spent the day in Chicago, and it was fabulous. I haven't been to Chicago in years, and I forgot how much I really enjoy it because it's been a very long time. I would never want to live there, but it's so nice. Sorry, I'm enjoying my new lipstick. Sorry, I'll stop fidgeting. Yeah, it's so nice. The weather was beautiful, which is just nice because it's Chicago, so it's either like mega hot and crazy windy, or cold, and because the wind chill right off the lake is usually cooler. But because it was warmer, the breeze was perfect. It was just a perfect day to be in Chicago. We took the train up. Again, an experience I haven't done in a very long time. I could do without the train ride just because I get motion sickness. But we got off, we went to the train station. There was a lot of stuff to me that looked different that's probably been there forever. But because I haven't been there in so long, there was like stores I never recognized and things like that. I went with my friend Caroline. She's the one that got me the ticket. And we walked Michigan Avenue and checked out a few things, got some food, killed some time before the show. And then came Newsies. And so, for people that don't know, oh my gosh, I'm going to start talking with my hands because I'm excited. I love plays. Plays, musicals, but basically all forms of entertainment. However, it takes a lot for me to not like something. So, I'm not like the number one critic because usually I like a lot of stuff that people would deem as cheesy or dislike or whatever. So just keep that in mind on all of my reviews. I tend to just love all of it, and it takes a lot for me to go, that was awful. But in this case, it was not. It was fantastic. We went to see the Newsies on Broadway in Chicago at the Cadillac Palace Theater, which I had never been to. I've only been to the Oriental one several times for some different shows. And so I was excited to go to a new theater. Now, they're relatively all the same. I mean, they have different, more or less different setups, but they all have very similar, the huge, grandiose, entryways and these really beautiful buildings. And the theater in itself, once you're in your seats, is gorgeous. This one I noticed the seats were a lot steeper than the Oriental, and so I couldn't even see. We were in the middle balcony, which is, if you're not familiar, you have the lower floor with all of its different, and then you have the lodge, which is the first section of the balcony, and then middle balcony, and then the rest of the balcony. And so we were in middle balcony, which for me is ideal. I love being in the lodge or middle balcony, or even front of regular balcony, because I'm short, and so sitting on the main floor, getting stuck with somebody in front of me, it never fails to have someone 7 feet tall sit in front of me and I can't see anything. So for me, I'm all about the balcony. We had perfect seats. Perfect. I can't even explain to you. They were fantastic. There was a lot of empty seats in front of us. I think it was because it was the 2:00 show, the afternoon show. So there was quite a bit of open seats right in our section. So I didn't have to deal with people around me really. And I had a view of the entire stage, which is gorgeous. Even if you don't you're naturally not prone to musicals or plays. There are people who are no, not my thing, which I'd understand. I do, everybody's got their preference. However, if you've never been, you should go. I don't even care what show it is. Look it up, pick one you think would be the most interesting, and go. Because there's something so cool about seeing live performances. Similar to a live concert, you get the rush of you're seeing that person there, and you have the atmosphere around you, and everybody's singing along and dancing. But when you can't not appreciate the skill and talent of a cast performing live. Like, there's not tapes. They didn't do, you know, like 89 takes for one scene, like in movies. So they can't mess up. Like, there's no option. And if they do, you know it. Like, and they had because it's a musical, they had the open orchestra pit underneath. And I have to say, I've seen things before, but it was gorgeous. It was so good. Hi, Olivia. I know you were just live. No, I'm live. Haha. I'm talking about the Newsies. It was so great. So the theater in itself, gorgeous, amazing. And then we're sitting there, and I did notice, because we get there, you know, early, and you sit in your seats, and we're waiting, right? We're just waiting for the show to start, and they have, like, their big Newsies screen up. And I did notice that the seats are significantly steeper, which isn't a problem when you're watching the show, but you realize, like, it kind of puts things into perspective as to the space in the room, because I couldn't see anybody on the lower floor. And at the Oriental, you can, and so you can see that the Oriental is a significantly bigger. Oh, thanks. Thanks. Sorry, my friend Olivia just said happy birthday, so I had to say thanks. We both go live, so she actually got me on this. I'm addicted. What can I say? So we're sitting there and we're waiting for the show to start, right? And now let's keep in mind, my friend Caroline is awesome. She's my best friend. She can play like 7 instruments. I mean, I'm exaggerating. She can play a lot. She can play the piano, she can play the harp, she can play the cello. She's very musically gifted. She's very smart when it comes to, you know, she would hear things that normal people wouldn't. Like, I'm not going to hear some like weird fluke thing from like that an instrument did, because I won't know the difference, because I didn't study music and do all these different instruments. So I was curious to see what her reaction at the end of the show was going to be, because she's going to be a harder critique than myself. But we were watching it, and as the show starts, so the front of the show is, they had a digital screen, which is really cool. That's the first time I've seen a show that was that technologically advanced, because a lot of times you have these like beautiful elaborate sets, but nothing that involved like digital and digital aspect. And so that was really cool, because they had this like box, like their main stage was like 9 squares. So picture like a tic-tac-toe board almost, but everything was digital screens, and they were broken up into like, so it looked like windows, but it was like one picture spread across the whole thing. And so we're sitting there, and I'm super excited, we're waiting, and then the music starts, and there's just something so cool about being in a room and you have the live orchestra, and the music was phenomenal. Like, they were flawless. And even I was listening, because I've been to shows and I've seen shows where they're not bad, but they don't quite all start on time and they don't stop on time together. Like the synchronicity, is that the right word? I think it is. The synchronicity of it all, like the ability to start and stop together when you're playing like as a big group is very hard. And to do it live when there's people singing to you and dancing and all of this stuff. So let's just start there. Amazing. The music is super energetic. The whole show, for those that don't know, let me start there. Let me explain kind of what Newsies is. Hi, Lily. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in forever. What's up? We're talking about Newsies on Broadway. Got to go see it in Chicago, and it was amazing. So we went, and oh my gosh, what was I talking about? Do I remember? Oh yeah, Newsies. What it's about, for those that don't know. Because I went in, I knew nothing about Newsies. I knew it was very popular. I knew it's been around forever. I knew it was a movie that I've never seen before, and I purposely didn't watch it. I thought about watching it before I went to see it, but I purposely didn't, because I didn't want to like sit there and just compare the whole time. And I just wanted a very genuine, authentic, like, first reaction to the show. And so we went, and we're watching the show, and the show's basically, it's about a guy named Jack. Boys. Let me start there. They're young boys. They're all like teenager, late teens, early teens. I think he's like 17. They're not, and it's set in the time of Newsies, like newsboys who like get up at the crack of dawn and run around and sell papers, for like a dime, and they try to make a profit. So he is a part of this kind of like band of misfit newsies. It's got that whole feel. It's basically an all male cast. There's select few female roles, but in general, like the whole time, the music, all the singing and dancing, it's all males. Again, there was a couple roles that were female, but in general, which was also new. I have never seen a play that the majority was all of one gender or the other, because it definitely changes the sound of the music and how they're singing it and performing it. And if you're like a music nerd or a choir nerd and you've ever listened to like a men's chorus or a women's chorus, you totally will understand what I mean. Because like you listen to a men's chorus and beautiful, stunning, but it has a very different sound than like a women's chorus. And again, just as beautiful and stunning, it's just a different sound. And so the whole basis of Newsies is that these boys, they pay 50 cents for like 100 papers, for example. And they have to turn around and sell those papers for a dime to make any profit. Basically to make back what they spent and to try to live. And a lot of them don't really have families. They live on the streets. And they work for Mr. Pulitzer, like Pulitzer Prize, Pulitzer last name. And so what happens is the whole basis of the story is these boys, they stick together, they sell these papers, they're super poor, trying to make a living. And then because of the time it's set, the newspaper owner, Pulitzer, of the world newspaper that they sell, he ups the price that Newsies have to pay for the newspapers, so that they in turn have to sell more, so that his circulation went up. So it was very selfish motives. His circulation was low, he needed it to go up, and in order for it to go up, he needed to force the Newsies to sell more so that they could live. So he's taking advantage of them. And what happens is these Newsies end up going on strike, which sounds crazy because they're not a union, but they just make themselves a union, but they're a bunch of boys. And so they learn, they kind of learn and research and find out, okay, what do we need to be a union? And they kind of start this whole revolution of child labor movement, a child labor movement on how they don't mind working, they don't mind selling the papers, but they want to be paid fairly, and they want to be recognized as an important part of the newspaper business. And that's basically the whole premise. And then there's other storylines that kind of go along with that, but that's what's the basic overwhelming part of the show is about. And so they spend the majority of the show on strike, and it's the process of what they have to deal with, what happens, and then by the end you find out, everything, which I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to ruin it, because it's awesome. It's only in Chicago for like a week, this past week. I think today is the last day, actually. You should check it out, see if it's going to be around. If not, see if it's in an area near you, and if not, get the movie, because it's so good. And the soundtrack is amazing. Can we just talk about the singing for a second? It was so brilliantly cast. To be such a good singer live on Broadway, I can't even imagine. But to have an all-male cast, that you have to sound so full, to have all of the parts covered, because not a lot of guys can sing like super high, what would normally be considered like female parts, just to have the full sound, to have the whole range of vocals. They were amazing. Like, I got chills, goosebumps. and especially in the chorus parts when they were all singing together, because there was like 15 of them, and so it was so powerful, and all of the music was very fun, very energetic, very not silly at all, because it definitely went along with what the storyline, which was actually, it wasn't a silly or funny, like there were things that happened because they're boys, so there were parts that were very entertaining and witty, but in general, it was a relatively, like, considered a drama, a normal storyline. So you didn't really have to deal with like something like overly sappy or something, super cheesy or funny, because it's not a comedy. But the music, when they sang, the power that you felt from them, just because of the fullness of all their voices and their vocal ranges. And again, if you're not familiar with that, you may not know what I'm talking about. But in general, if you think of like when you listen to your music and you hear like their background singers, or when it gets to like the climax of a song and they have all this build and all the harmonies and stuff going on, that's what I'm talking about. So they had all of that, but they were doing all of that with a group of like 15, maybe 18 guys. And they kept their energy up the entire time, which, that's a very long show. And the amount of dancing in that show, this is kind of what the show is known for. It's known for the music and the dancing, because there's a lot of, I don't even know like what genre you would classify it under. Maybe contemporary, a little bit of jazz, very Broadway-like dance. But the skill to which there's a lot of leaping and jumping, and because they're guys, they can jump higher, but then they come down harder. So I'm like watching them this entire time, blown away by the pirouettes they're doing and the leaps across the stage and the tricks and the back flips and the jumps. I mean, it was like an acrobatic show during a musical. It was just so well done, and they were so in sync when they were dancing. Like, it's hard enough to be in sync when you're singing together, and then it's hard enough to be in sync when you're singing to an orchestra, but then you're singing to an orchestra live while dancing. And not just like, like a two-step dancing, but like full out, full energy, physically demanding dancing. And it was just, I sat here and I was just like, and you can't help but get just moved by how brilliant they are. And so that's why I'm saying, if you normally wouldn't watch plays because they're just not your thing and musicals aren't your thing, like, I get it, and I'm not saying they have to become your favorite thing ever, but I would highly, highly recommend that you take the time to go to one, just to have that experience. Especially like if you can if you're close to a city and you have access to a like Chicago Broadway or New York Broadway. A lot of cities have like their Broadway in fill in the blank. And that's what we have. We kind of have like an off-Broadway Chicago theater district. And so if you can make it to one, I highly recommend it, just because the experience in itself, you won't regret. Even if you are like, oh, that was awesome, I don't have the desire to go to a musical every weekend, that's fine. But just to understand, like, the skill, the mad skill level, I think performers and artists and actors and dancers, I think they're highly underrated. I mean, I know we live in a land where entertainment is like number one, and we pay actors and actresses like billions of dollars, between TVs and movies and all of this promos and everything. They get paid and paid and paid and paid. But I'm talking about when you go to a Broadway show or off-Broadway show, these people love performing and they love doing this, and they don't nearly get the recognition for it, which is kind of sad because they are amazing. Like, way better than a lot of the stuff I see on TV. And it's just something about being live. It changes the entire dynamic because they have to feed off of that audience. If they have a dull audience that's not going to respond to them or not going to do anything, then they're gonna have to work harder to get some sort of reaction. And when you react because you're moved by what they're doing, then they react by doing what they're doing even better. And so it's just a really cool thing to be a part of. I really, really enjoy them. I'm glad I got to go. I would go every weekend. I would be a season ticket holder every season if I could afford it, because it's just, they're so good. I can't even explain to you. The soundtrack, the song Seize the Day, which you've probably even heard and didn't even know it. That's how popular it is like one of the main songs of the show. Now, all of the songs are flawless. They really are, because the people singing them had such power and control and skill that you're just sitting there dumbfounded. However, the song Seize the Day, which is their big, like, main part, because it's right when they're talking about seizing the day, going on strike, even though they can't really afford to, they're gonna starve, they live on the streets, like, taking the opportunity to not let people take advantage of them, and that they are human beings, they are important, you know. And so you're listening to them sing this song, and then you're watching them do this huge dance number. It's probably one of their biggest dance numbers in the show. And, like, I dare you to watch that and not have a reaction. Like, I would not understand you if you did. I'd be like, how do you not have an emotional reaction to that? Now, I understand I'm overly emotional. I get emotional about nothing. And it takes very little work for me. But you have to appreciate what they do. And the background people so need props, because they were flawless in their transitions. They had so many transitions between the sets. Now, they had these huge, massive, like, metal, like, 3-story metal grates that are made to look like a staircase. You know, like on the outside of a New York City apartment, that, like, the fire escapes. And they had 3 of them that took up the stage, like, from one side of the stage to the other. So it was just like bam, bam, bam. And they connected, and they disconnected, and they rotated, and they moved all around, and they all had different purposes. But it was so seamless throughout every scene. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And so the fact that their transitions were very flawless, and I was like actively looking for them to have a moment where it was just like, oh no. And I know why people are like, why would you look for that? But I was actively seeking to see, like, are they really this good? Like, is something going to happen? And they were just so good. And so I give props to the background people that were moving all of those that don't get seen and don't get near enough credit, because that takes a massive amount of skill between that and to tie that into all of the digital aspects of the screens that they used and the newspaper that they had, like, digitally on the screens, and just the whole format of it was so great. I don't even know what else to say without giving stuff away. So that was my Newsies experience. Amazing, 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 amazing. If there would be one word, flawless. It ended and I was like, oh, let's do it again, just because I was blown away by their skill. And it's not even necessarily like, and I've noticed this in my friend Caroline. She enjoyed the show. She said it was very good, that they were very talented. She was a little more, she was a little harder on the critiques, but she notices more when it comes to, like, musical things. And she made a valid point about storylines. Like, a lot of musicals and plays, they don't really have super complicated plots. Like, they're very basic storylines. So it's not like they're super complicated things to understand. Now, I'm sure there are ones out there, but in general, they're not complicated at all. And so we were sitting there, we were wondering, you know, like, it would be interesting to get to see a musical or a play that's, like, super complex, and it makes you think a lot, and it makes you whatever. And I think, you know, my opinion as to why they don't do musicals like that a lot is because they do all these musical numbers, okay? And that's really, you know, the whole point of going to see a musical is not just the storyline. You obviously want that to be good, but the biggest part of that, like at least 50%, if not more, is the music and the dancing, the whole musical aspect of it. And you can't do that if you had a super complex plot, because you don't have time to do a big musical dance number for each like part of the plot, which is in most cases is what happens, because that's how they move the story along. They link songs and numbers together to get across the basic point of the story. And so that was an interesting observation that I would tend to agree with her on. I still love it. I don't get bored with simplistic things that I know what's going to happen. I don't think I have any critiques for the show. Actually, I lied. I do have one. And it's not anybody's fault or the cast's fault. They were great. The only thing that I had was actually an issue with the storyline, because you spend this entire show being incredibly moved by like the power of these boys and like the things they were willing to sacrifice, and they were beaten up, they were taken to like a children's jail, like the things that they did for their freedom and the rights to work and get paid like everyone else and not get taken advantage of, was very moving. And then you have like, there's the subtle, storylines between two of the boys and how they're like brothers and they're really close, they're like best friends. And then you have a couple of the other ones are the goofballs, and you have there's a girl who's like the main female character basically, who she's a reporter that kind of helps them get their story out, to rally the troops and get people on their side and things like that. Well, her and the main character, Jack, they kind of develop this relationship. And so that's the other, like, subplot line, is they talk about their relationship and they kind of build, and it's very quirky and unusual. And their interaction was actually very entertaining. But towards, like, 3/4 of the way through, they had a very, like, cheesy, romantic, like, song and dance thing that to me felt a little awkward, just because I really kind of loved the revolutionary part of the show and the emotional movement of the show, and then all of a sudden, so you're like totally gripped by the show the whole time, and then all of a sudden there's like super cheese moment and you're just like, ugh. And it's like, and I love, I'm a hopeless romantic, I'm all about the chick flick, but that was the only thing I would have to say that I was just kind of like, maybe not, because just that cheese moment. Other than that, they were great. And they even did that well. So it's not like it was just like all of a sudden they had this one bad moment. They did that excellently. It was just a personal preference of mine. It was just an awkward part of the story for me, and I could have done without that number, or without that part of the story being shown, just because it pulled a little bit away from the whole reason I was watching the musical, like the whole basis of the musical. So that's just my personal preference. But I still loved it. I would still go watch it again. I think I'm going to buy the soundtrack. Actually, I know I'm going to buy the soundtrack. Because it was incredibly moving and just super fun. It's a very high energy show. Not like loud, shouty, whatever, but very, the dance numbers were very high energy. And most of the music, even like the serious stuff, they were very upbeat, very interactive. There was a lot of lyrics. I give them credit to that, because it's hard enough to remember like your lines and a slower song, let alone a faster song with lots of words, while you're trying to act, while you're trying to go along with the orchestra, while you have 1,000 people staring at you. Go you. Because props to you guys. But the actor, I gotta do a shout out, not that he's ever gonna see this or no, but the actor that played the main character, Jack. So good. Super cute, but so impressed by the way he held himself together, the accent he kept the whole time. He didn't slip once. And he was so, like, I genuinely believed that was Jack. Like, I didn't go, oh, these actors are so great, they're so fantastic. And I did with all the rest of them. But with him, like, there were moments where it was just like, I'm watching Jack and it was just like, he was that role. And that's impressive. Not gonna lie. So, in general, that's my review of the Newsies. I know I've had a couple friends that have gone and seen it. I would love to hear what they thought of it. Comment below, or send me a message or post on the page or something, because I'd love to talk about it with somebody, just somebody who's already seen it, and get their thoughts. But yeah, so for those who care, that's my opinion on that. Me being candid, like usual. Again, go see one. Anyone, I don't even care. Pick a play, go. Give the arts a chance, a shout out. I personally feel they're vitally important to human beings. It makes me sad when people talk about not needing these and these can be spared and this can go away and we don't need to pay for this and we don't need to pay for that. Because honestly, I don't know where I would be. Like, I was a huge art person. I took art classes and drawing classes and jewelry classes and photography and dance, and it, like, when people take those, like, they change things. They make people feel stuff. And you may not personally like it, and that's okay. But your life would be drastically different if you didn't have any arts available at all. Like, if you just cut everything out, there goes your entertainment. There goes the TV and movies you love to watch so much, or the musicals or plays you love to go to, or the museums that you like to go to, because that's what helps people create. And so, shout out to that. Sorry, I'll get off my high horse now. That was just my personal venting session. But, yeah. So, enjoy. Let me know what you think. I'll post another video probably tomorrow, in a few days. I don't know. I think we'll probably talk about some makeup soon. I know some people are waiting to hear on that, because that's, again, my thing. So, see you around, guys. Hope you had a fabulous weekend. I know I did. Have a great week. Sorry tomorrow's Monday. It'll go by faster than you know it. See you around.